Good morning, I'm Adam Sexton, and we want to get right into it today. Governor Chris Sununu is seeking a third term in the corner office in Concord, and he is our guest this morning. Governor, thanks for joining us.
Hey, good morning.
So Election Day is about 9 months away, right here in 2020. It comes around quickly for you New Hampshire governors every time.
It's always somewhere.
You're seeking a third term. That would put you in rarefied air with New Hampshire governors. What's the case you're going to make to Granite State voters?
Look, since 2017, since we came into office, we were very careful to be both transparent about what we wanted to do, focus on the economy, focus on jobs, focus on workforce, focus on wage growth, and then at the same time as those things surged and provided opportunity for the state, allow us to make those investments into mental health and opioids and all these systems that had been just waning for years and years and years. But now we're making those investments. We're doing prevention programs. We've created this hub and spoke model. We're reinventing ourselves with 21st century type systems, and we're getting the job done, and we're seeing results. So the state is in a phenomenally good shape. Now, there's always more work to do. There's always more opportunity out there. But again, we're very proud of the work we've done. We want to keep doing it not for ourselves, but again, just for the people in New Hampshire.
The top of the ticket is going to have a big impact on this race. The Democratic nominee could be running alongside Bernie Sanders. You've got the incumbent. Should voters view you as a package deal, Sununu and Trump?
No, I don't. Look, we're New Hampshire, right? And again, if people want to know where we stand on anything, it's 603 first. I mean, that really has to be the mentality. And Donald Trump doesn't define Republicans, just like I don't think Bernie Sanders defines Democrats. Everyone has to stand on their own and talk about their issues. How is this election going to impact these families and that neighborhood and this community and that town and that city? That's what it's all about. And I think when the folks get out there and they look at the issues, they do their homework, which we do very, very well in New Hampshire, we feel like we're going to be very successful in November. We don't take anything for granted. But let's also remember there's still a lot of work to be done, right? I got a state to manage. We're in the middle of a legislative process. We have a lot of departments doing some very good things. You got to stay on top of them. Accountability, metrics, where are we going? Not just a lot of fluff like we're going to make it better. No, let's see how we're making it better. Let's make sure we're achieving those goals, and let's hold ourselves accountable to that.
In your State of the State address, getting into some state issues here, you said you wanted to increase pregnancy protections for working moms and expectant moms, but wouldn't the best thing to do for them be to give them 3 months off paid at the end of their pregnancy when they have a child to ensure that newborn?
Paid family leave. We're very supportive of paid family leave. We have a bill that I've sponsored that is going through the legislature now, paid family leave, and we found a way to do it with no income tax, a voluntary program. If you want it, you can buy that insurance, have those protections in place. We think it's a home run. And the only real fundamental difference with the Democrats' plan is theirs is an income tax. And that's one of the fundamental decisions the Democrats are going to have to make. Do you want paid family leave? Do you want that program that I think a lot of people can agree would be hugely beneficial to citizens of the state, or are you more concerned about an income tax? Because mine doesn't have it. Theirs does. It's really that simple. So if they really want the program, I think a lot of us do, there's an option for them to move forward with it without that income tax attached to it. That's the New Hampshire way.
What if you want it, but you can't afford it, in terms of being one of those women who wants to access that, but you just don't have the money to buy in?
Well, again, because under our plan, the state would essentially be providing paid family leave for all the 10,000 state employees. The premiums are rock bottom. I mean, they're so low because we're already insuring such a large pool. So based on the calculations that we've looked at so far, the actuaries, we think the buy-in is extremely, extremely affordable.
The Office of the Child Advocate is out with her annual report again, and while there's progress that's been made, certainly there's still a long way to go in terms of improving the child protection system here in New Hampshire. Is this something that you would in some way can speed up? Because the hiring process is still there. Progress is there again, but elusive. Is this something you want to say, I got this done at the end of 8 years or 4 years?
Well, look, it's not about just saying, well, the governor got it done. It's about saying we actually achieved results, not for the governor, but for those kids. That's what it's all about. So we're moving forward. We have our new prevention programs that are in place. The average when we came into office, 2016, 2017, you had some DCYF caseworkers working for the state that had up to 80 or 90 cases each. It was unbelievable. And we've more than cut that in half. So we've made huge progress in a very short period of time. We kind of have a 5-year plan we're looking at to get all these metrics down. We have more kids leaving foster care than entering foster care for the first time in ages now. That's another very positive statistic. So we have a lot of these metrics moving in the right direction. One of the biggest challenges we have is workforce, right? You can have the best programs and the best plan, but if you can't get the workers to implement, it's very challenging. And at 2.5% unemployment, most businesses will agree with you. It's really hard to find workforce right now. So we have the budget in there. That's not the issue. We have the ability. We have all the incentive to do it. It's just finding some of those folks, hopefully drawing them out of our university system, our programs within the college system now, making those connections early on so they want to stay and work here in New Hampshire. And we think over time, as these metrics are really good now, they're getting much better, and we can start accelerating that.
Wouldn't the best bet to be to increase the pay for those frontline workers?
Well, look, there's always opportunity to increase pay, absolutely. Pay is not what drives someone to work in that field. That is a tough field. That's a field of passion, and those individuals, if you've spent time with them one-on-one, they love what they do. They know they're making a difference in these kids' lives. But you want our workplace balance, you want quality of life balance, you want a good pay when you can again make those adjustments. And we've seen pay go up in the state. The fact that wages are constantly being increased in the state because there's so much competition provides a great opportunity. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. You know, the state also we've had a lot of challenges because just the state hiring process alone is very cumbersome, and we've tried to streamline a lot of those regulations, try to fast track a lot of those processes. So again, folks aren't waiting 3 or 4 months to get hired, but they can be hired literally in a matter of weeks. You have private agencies that are hiring a lot of those people competing with us, not just on pay, but on speed. So a lot of factors come into play, but we're making great progress, and we know it's going to continue.
You've touted the Doorway program on the opioid crisis as a success here in Manchester. Some local officials dispute that, but it's one thing that's clear is that Granite Pathways has been struggling here, whether it's the Teen Treatment Center or also with the Doorway as well. You know, Harry Truman had the old saying, the buck stops here. To what extent do you have to take responsibility for what's not working with the Doorway and Granite Pathways?
As soon as we realized there was a problem, we're making a change, right? One thing I take as an engineer is whenever you design a system, whether you're talking about mental health or opioids or whatever it might be, you got to design in flexibility. Government typically doesn't do that, but we've designed in a lot of flexibility. We gave them about 6 months to ramp up. We saw some of the issues. We gave them about 3 or 4 months to address those issues. And when we realized they couldn't do that, we said we're going to make a change. And we had the ability to do that. So Granite Pathways is out. We're going to bring, again, Nashua and Manchester are the only 2 areas where hospitals aren't kind of that link on the hub. And so now we have that in place. And I think that's why we'll start seeing the success in Nashua and Manchester, similar to the success we've had around the state. But you're absolutely right. You've got to be accountable. You've got to be on top of these things. You have to manage. You can't just put something in place and say, well, we checked the box and we got it done. No way. Good management is about staying on top of it and knowing that you're getting the results for those individuals.
Granite Pathways struggled before them. Serenity Place was ground down into nothing, essentially, by the opioid crisis. When does the Doorway need to become a house? Does the government need to do more here rather than relying on nonprofits and these businesses that end up just struggling under the weight?
Well, Serenity Place was a very different issue, so we have to be careful there. Granite Pathways didn't have, I think, a lot of the experience here in New Hampshire in those community relations. You know, a lot of people can provide a service, but if you don't have the built-in community relations with whether it's the first responders, the recovery centers, the treatment centers, the hospitals, all of these other folks on the front lines, and that's just where Granite Pathways struggled, I think. They had trouble making those connections and those relationships and building that sense of community trust that is really important in driving that. That's why all the hospitals that drive it in the rest of the state have had a lot more success, because they are partners. They're on the front lines of this stuff. And that's why bringing in Catholic Medical Center and Southern Hospital are just going to be, I think, real great benefits to that. So
I'm curious for your perspective on something that happened over the last week in the House. The Speaker and the Democrats brought up for reprimand a number of Republican reps who had refused to take sexual harassment training on principle, essentially. Many of them saying this isn't part of the state constitution, I shouldn't have to do this. Some were saying it's not fair to single them out for shame when you're not doing the same to people who have done workplace harassment and get to essentially stay in the shadows and not be exposed. What's your perspective on it?
In terms of like state employees all have to take sexual harassment training protocols. I mean, the House of Representatives is different. They're technically not classified the same as my office would be or others would. Look, I think everybody should take sexual harassment training. I think in this day and age, there's always something to be learned. There's always an opportunity there. You have to stay up to date on what's appropriate and what isn't. Believe it or not, things change all the time. And so I think it's a very positive thing. The processes that happen in the House, those are the House processes. And, you know, the Speaker made a decision to go through that and go through this reprimanding. That's something for the House representatives and those individuals. But when it comes to my office and for the state employees, of course, we have to have it.
On energy, you've called for 2 studies to be completed on offshore wind by the end of this year, essentially January 2021. What is your long-term vision here? Is there enough coastline or space in our coastal waters to actually make a productive wind farm?
I got to tell you, we have such incredible opportunity with offshore wind. The strongest offshore winds in the country are sitting in the Gulf of Maine. They are right here. So that's why our opportunity is even bigger than you'd find almost anywhere else. So what we've also seen is the cost curve is coming down. So the cost to implement these systems, it's really getting lower and lower. Now, we have to study it. We have to do the feasibility study, figure out where it would be, and implement it. We're probably still a few years away. But as that cost curve comes down and it starts becoming much more competitive with traditional baseload generation, that's an opportunity we don't want to miss and want to waste. So we're starting that process now. We're being aggressive about it because we want to be first in line so that we can actually tap into it. And when you look at what's happening in the Gulf of Maine, partnering with the state of Maine in doing so, huge opportunity. Look, baseload generation is dropping here. Prices continue to go up. Now, we in New Hampshire have done a very good job not passing legislation and doing things to raise rates. It's one of my foremost priorities of the state and will continue to do so. Massachusetts, on the other hand, as an example, just in the past 3 years since I've been governor, their rates, we used to be on par. Their rates are about 20% higher than ours now because they keep passing legislation and doing things that really impact the ratepayer for the sake of politics, as opposed to really paying attention to the fact that we have some of the most expensive energy rates in the country. Low-income families, seniors on fixed incomes, they all have to pay those massive subsidies. So we have to be very conscious about the cost of this. That's why something like offshore wind, solar. Solar's a great opportunity. But my initiative is to put solar on mobile homes, on low-income apartment buildings. Why shouldn't those that are usually most impacted by having to pay that subsidy, why shouldn't they be first at the trough to get the economic benefit? And we all get the environmental benefit. These are the type of kind of more modernized, smarter initiatives that we're going after.
There's always room for improvement, right?
Always.
We always try to do better.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, from your perspective, if you had to do a self-evaluation, what as governor do you think you could do better? And I have to take one thing off your plate. We all would want to spend more time with family. So on the job, what's one thing you think you could do better?
The most valuable thing I've learned, just off the top of my head, the most valuable thing I've learned that I can give as a governor is my time. I mean, giving people my time one-on-one. I need not just with family, but with individuals. Someone has a problem. One thing we try to really specialize in this administration is how do you get the big system to focus on the individual? Right? Not a big system for big system's sake, not bigger government with bigger taxes, but that's the trick of government. And that's one of the most valuable things I've been able to offer. And again, I wish I could meet with all 400 representatives on every bill that comes across. It's one of the things that sometimes you just can only meet with the sponsors on this one or sponsors on that one. We have 1,000 pieces of legislation and only so many hours in the day, and you got to manage too. So probably spending more one-on-one time with a lot of those folks that have written these pieces of legislation, whether they're going to pass or fail, find out what's driving them. Because even if something isn't going to pass, I'm always a believer you can find middle ground. You can come back and try to do it again in a better way. So I think we've done a great job talking to the citizens and schools and businesses and all that kind of stuff. I think spending a little more time with the individual legislators and the senators on both sides of the aisle would probably allow us to go after certain things again and again. Because sometimes you got to go after it 2 or 3 times. Keep trying to make it better until you can get it passed.
All right, Governor Kristi Noem.
Hey, thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us on Close Up. We appreciate it.